A few months ago, I decided to learn the world's smallest language, Toki Pona. And after I posted a video about it, you guys blew it up to the extent that the creator of the language hit me up to send me a preview copy of the newest official Toki Pona book, which I get to announce in this video, along with getting an interview of the Mapi Toki Pona herself. To refresh anyone who isn't familiar with Toki Pona, go watch the first video. But essentially, Toki Pona is a constructed language created by Sonja Lang to trim thoughts and speech down to the simplest terms possible, resulting in 137-ish words, thus becoming the world's smallest language. When I first heard about this, it piqued my interest enough to set aside a month of my life to learn it as quickly as possible and make a video about it. And the response since then has been so cool. I unintentionally summoned the entire Toki Pona community with that one video, and it seems they've collectively decided I passed the vibe check and accepted me with open arms. Apparently, all it takes is actually putting effort into the video and not assuming you know it all after a couple of days of learning, which is apparently something not everyone gets right with this topic. To be fair, I definitely got my fair share of valid critiques pointing out the several mistakes I made, but overall, I think it was a net positive in bringing awareness of this nascent Toki Pona to a whole new group of people. The language's creator, Sonja, even messaged me about it, which totally awakened my inner fanboy. I seriously had to lock in to respond normally. And just last week, she asked me if I wanted an early copy of her newest book, which I calmly accepted. There are now 3 Toki Pona books written by Sonja: Pu, Ku, and finally the big reveal, Yan Osu Piwawa Nasa, or Su. Su is the story of the wonderful Wizard of Oz, written totally in Sitalan Pona, and it's available right now. This is the announcement. Yeah. Before I get into it, I want to clarify I'm not getting paid to talk about this, but I was gifted this book by Sonja, and I'm choosing to make a video about it because I think it's cool, and I think anyone at all interested in Toki Pona will also think it's awesome. I mentioned in my first video that Sitalan Pona is definitely my favorite way of writing in Toki Pona, so having this official publication of nicely written Sitalan Pona with some awesome drawings is just so much fun. I don't know, man. I just got the book literally today, so I haven't had the chance to read it all, but what I have read is genuinely really fun and cool. I'm still not totally fluent by any means, and my learning has slowed down a little bit since that was literally all I did for an entire month, but that kind of just makes it fun to try to decode every page. Every sentence is like a mini puzzle that unravels into this whole story, and I love it. But honestly, I think I read way better in Sitalan Pona than I would in Latin letters, along with it just looking way cooler this way. Like, that just looks crazy. But if you have a hard time reading some of it, don't worry. At the end of each chapter, it has a nice little English summary so you won't get too lost, along with some seriously cute illustrations that are on basically every page. These were done by artist Evan Dom, and they totally fit the Sitalan Pona vibe, if you ask me. Shout out to that guy. You've probably noticed at this point that Sonja has made a tradition of adding dedicated words to Toki Pona that describe each one of her books, which by the way is such a power move. Anyway, her previous books' words were Pu and Ku, and their glyphs are like a simplified version of their covers. And that also applies with Su with these stretches of the Nasin Pikiwen yellow. But Su functions a bit differently from the others, being defined as interacting with a book from the illustrated book series that started with The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, which of course means there's a bonus announcement that Sonja is hoping to produce more books in this style. This addresses an issue that I and others have noticed in the Toki Pona community. The majority of Toki Pona media is based around the language itself, rather than separate content for people who already know it. I think this is just the nature of conlangs as a whole, because they have the learning barrier no matter what, unlike natural languages that have millions of native speakers. Now I say issue in air quotes because I don't think it's a bad thing to have a bunch of learning resources to grow the community, but I think we can all agree that more Toki Pona content for those already in the community wouldn't be a bad thing at all. And Su is a great step towards more high quality media for speakers all around the world. But this isn't to say that there isn't any genuine Toki Pona made media out there. There's actually quite a few people creating all types of music, podcasts, videos, or whatever other kinds of art in Toki Pona. The Toki Pona community is establishing its culture one piece of art at a time, and Su is a notable step in that journey. Su ni and Tenpo kama la Su ante. When Sonja first gave me a sneak peek of Su, my first thought was, yippee, new Toki Pona book. And my second thought was, I wonder why she chose to do Wizard of Oz. So with that, I decided to do a little interview with Sonja to understand her nasin pali esu. Toki Pona, I just wanted to start by asking, what drew you towards the Wonderful Wizard of Oz to start off Sue?
I've always been drawn to classical things and the fantasy genre. What makes a story timeless and enjoyable for people of different generations? How does the hero's journey myths across all cultures? Also, when a work is in the public domain, it becomes fertile ground for all types of creators to remix and adapt.
How did you come up with the idea for Sue as a whole, especially considering this is a totally different style from Pooh and Coo?
My first two books laid a foundation for teaching and documenting the language, with Pooh being a lesson book with exercises and Coo being a dictionary with thousands of example translations. I felt the next thing should be a storybook completely in Toki Pona with illustrations to provide context, and only a little bit of English to help beginners. What makes Sue a first for me is that it's almost entirely in the Sitelen Pona glyphs that I invented, and also it's in full color.
Yeah, that's awesome. This is not a live conversation. I don't know why I'm doing that. What led you to get Evan Dom involved to illustrate the book?
Once we chose The Wonderful Wizard of Oz as a subject, I started reading the Oz wiki on fandom.com. I was reading the page about munchkins because I needed to understand what the heck is a munchkin. That's when I scrolled down and I saw the gallery with so many ways that these friendly little creatures with blue hats had been depicted by different artists. I immediately fell in love with the simple and cute interpretation by Evan Dam. So I reached out to him to license his art for my book project, and the rest is history. So shout out to Evan, and check out rice-boy.com for all his own comics and original creations.
And last, what are your thoughts or hopes for how Sue will be received by the Toki Pona community?
Right now, there's a lot of attention on the Sitelen Pona writing system because it's not yet been codified into Unicode. So I hope Sue helps with that effort. Like they say, show me the bibliography. Other than that, I just hope readers and collectors have fun. And if Sue proves to be popular, I hope to make more Sue books in a similar format in the future.
Pona! Tawa Pona. There's a few specific language details in this book that I think a lot of you will find interesting. Now, Sonja has stated that while she did create the foundations of Toki Pona, she's essentially handed off the language to the community to use and develop in whatever ways they want. This has resulted in quite a bit of variation person to person when using Toki Pona, so I thought it would be interesting to go over what parts Sonja did or didn't add into the book, since it's technically the first official Toki Pona story. Lots of you might know or remember from my other video that there's a semi-vague amount of words. You've got the original 120 Pooh words, of course, and Coo introduced two groups of words that have been implemented by the community. It's been made a point that you can speak Toki Pona any way you want, but for the Sue style, Sonja stuck to the canon Pooh and Coo Suli words, along with one Kulili word, Mayuna, being an easier way to say old. The glyph looks like this, and there's a few other glyph clarifications and additions in Sue that I'll go over real quick. Sue looks like the cover, like I already mentioned. Akesi has 4 legs instead of 6 to be a little more accurate to reptiles. Namako has this pepper icon to emphasize the spiciness and look a little more separate from Sin. And Mute was actually given a bonus glyph that looks like 4 Lukas, or 5s, exclusively for when it's meaning 20 in the Toki Pona number system, which was also changed slightly in this book. The way you use numbers established in the first book is not ideal, to the extent that basically everyone says you should avoid numbers completely when using Toki Pona. 1, 2, and anything over 3 are simple enough, and you can combine some existing words to mean certain numbers, but trying to say any relatively high and specific number will simply fill the entire screen right now. So Nasi Nanpa Pona was established by these people to expand or condense on the original version without completely invalidating it. It seems complicated, but reading it does make a lot of sense, along with being backwards compatible with the original number system. It would make the most sense if you read the first one and maybe some of the second before getting to this one, but even if you don't know Toki Pona at all, it's kind of just an awesome cryptic book to have on the shelf. So I totally recommend checking it out. Side note, it's also just incredibly satisfying that these books were all printed the same size. Sonja, please keep this up. I'm by no means a Toki Pona centered channel, but who knows, I'll probably end up doing a few more Toki Pona related videos down the line. So to get ready for those, make sure you subscribe.